This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Well, Russ McDaid joins me. He's the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association. And as I promoted this is the challenges of families with long-term care. We're now getting into that season where am I right about this? Where families get together, Russ, and these are discussions that we don't like to have, but in fact we have to have.
Right, and Terry, it's never too early to start that discussion. It'll surprise most people to know that 70% of Americans age 65 plus will need long-term care in their lifetime, and that's for an average of 3 years. I want you to say that again. 70% of Americans 65 plus will need long-term care in their lifetime, and for an average of 3 years. A little over 20%, 1 in 5, will need a nursing facility stay of at least a year. So we often think of this as something that's going to happen to another family or someone else is dealing with, but when it hits home, it's really important that you've started the conversation around the holiday time.
Look, you're the expert in this. Is this something that we just put off because it's not top of mind and it's not pressing? Or is there an uncomfortable? I always felt, God, my mother, passed away. She was in a long-term facility. We didn't think very much about it, so I'm glad you're here. I wish I had had this conversation with you until she had the need for it. And fortunately, she got great care. There's no complaint about the care at all. Bottom line here is this something we don't want to do because we don't want to face the future?
Yes.
Or is it just we just don't think about it?
Yes.
Maybe both.
I think it's a little bit of both. And I think we find that the best way to start the conversation is to ask permission of your loved one. If you start that conversation, Mom, we got to talk, things aren't going well, that's not going to go as well as, Mom, while we're all together this holiday, let's take some time and sit down and talk about something that none of us want to think about, but it's important that we do it now.
Well, go ahead. No, finish your thought.
I'm saying, and ask that permission for a more comfortable conversation about if this were to happen later in life, what would it look like for you? Yeah. What would your choices be as far as the care you receive?
That's very important because often something happens and you can't consult the person who's in need of the health care and you make the decision. They may not be able, they may not be physically or mentally able to make that decision, and you have to make it for them. And most of the time I think people make the right decisions, but that's not the point.
Right, nobody's thinking straight when they're in crisis.
Yeah.
And so when you wait until you're in crisis, that's when decisions that either aren't what the individual would have wanted or aren't in the best interest of everybody involved oftentimes get made.
And the holidays, it's a great time of the year because A, we get together, B, we hope it's harmonious, right? And we're not in some family quarrel. But it's a time when I think we get more open. We talk about our families. We talk about the past. We joke about, the relatives who aren't there. We all have fun doing that. But it is a great time to do it, isn't it?
Well, it's never a better time. You have the sons and daughters that may live elsewhere in the country who are home, and it's a lot less controversial than talking about politics right now. So in some ways, it might be one of the most comfortable conversations you can have around a family gathering when you consider what's happening in the political environment as an alternative.
No, that's a good point. And are the number of facilities, long-term care, increasing, or have they remained about the same?
We've been pretty much steady for the past 5 to 7 years. The place that we see significant growth is in the retirement living sector, that being the senior living communities. They can be branded as a number of things. Some of them are 55 plus. And I keep joking with my kids saying Mom and Dad are headed there. It's 5 short years and I'm going to qualify for the gym and the putting green and the swimming pool.
But you know what? Anecdotally, a lot of my friends are selling their homes and moving into those facilities. And I live in Lancaster County where we have a fair number, but but you're right, that's another kind of planning. This year you're primarily focused on a piece of legislation that deals with lawsuit abuse, and next year you've got Medicaid disparity. Let's take lawsuit abuse first. jump in.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. So we're working on House Bill 1037, and that's a bill to curb lawsuit abuse here in Pennsylvania as it relates to long-term care providers. And what the bill does, it addresses an issue where predatory out-of-state law firms are publishing ads in papers and essentially dialing for dollars, hoping that people who've had loved ones in nursing facilities will call up a number and try to get a settlement. What that does is it takes scarce dollars away from those facilities who are trying to provide care. This bill would put a limit on punitive damages at 2.5 times or 250% the compensatory phase. And that's an important piece of this. A lot of people, this doesn't take anybody's right to sue away. Okay. And in fact, all it says is that compensatory number, or the number that makes somebody who sues whole, that a punitive number, or what we like to call the jackpot number sometimes, because that's the concern, is that would be so excessive it would put someone out of business. That number can't be more than 2.5 times the compensatory number.
But look, we're now, when this airs, it'll be the weekend before Thanksgiving. The holiday's coming up. The legislature is not known for staying in session. You've got the speaker, as we talked about with the reporters, Speaker of the House, running for what? Running for governor of the state. What's the prospects?
I'm hopeful that they're good. There's never a better time in our mind.
Okay.
And the House is scheduled to be back in the first 2 weeks of December. Okay. And they've got voting days scheduled, and we're pushing very hard to get a fair hearing on this bill. It's important for Pennsylvanians, and it's important for our Medicaid program, which is the second issue we wanted to talk about.
All right. The other thing that, now, obviously that would be in next year, in the last year of the current session. You've got your issue is Medicaid disparity, the underfunding of nursing facilities. Explain to our viewers why that matters. Why should they care about that?
Right now, the amount of money that nursing facilities are being paid by the state Medicaid program is $44.73 a day, or $16,300 a resident a year lower than the state's own reimbursement system says it should be.
Whoa. Why?
Because we've lost touch with reality, because the amount of funding provided in state budgets year over year hasn't kept up with reality. In fact, our nursing facilities in Pennsylvania have been flat funded in 4 of the last 6 years, while funding for everything else from education to infrastructure to public safety has grown. Facilities have been flat funded. And we've been asked to do more with less. We think it's a concern. Yeah. It's unacceptable. Now,
is that a decision that Harrisburg, the legislature, and the governor get to make together? Oh, sure, it's part of the funding package, right?
It's part of the funding package, and this is a challenging issue to be sure. The graph that our viewers got to see clearly shows that gap between what facilities are getting on a daily basis and the dollars they should be getting under the state's own reimbursement system is growing. And it's one of the things that's leading to the challenges we face around workforce and around quality care.
All right, we expect you to come back and keep us updated on these before the year's out, and hopefully next year as well. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers. Have a great Thanksgiving and stay well.